Bem-vindos a esta segunda parte deste 31º Congresso da APDC. Falamos de tecnologias.
So welcome back. We're going to speak about technology. We have to speak about the economy too, and also the ethical and moral dimension. I'd like to call Paulo Faustino, member of the managing board of Axians Energies Portugal. He has more than 20 years of experience in the ICTs industry and also managing businesses and people. He's going to speak about why economics needs a moral dimension. So good morning, welcome. Good morning, Christina. Good morning, everybody in the room and also those of you connected online. Mr. Chairman of APDC, Mr. Chairman of the conference, thank you very much for making us feel so much at home in this vibrant conference of today. In the next few minutes, we'll speak about capitalism and what that has to do with me, with you, with all of us. Capitalism, as we know it, is the model that has been the basis of the accelerated economic growth we've had in the last few decades. Unfortunately, it's not like Moore's law. It's not the GDP is not doubling every 2 years, but especially after the Second World War, it has grown, and capitalism has been by far the system that has created more wealth and more social progress in the last decades. So you may ask yourself, is that if that's true, why isn't Coca-Cola seducing people around the world? Why do we have this sort of disappointment with capitalism and the political systems that have governed with it in the last few decades? It's a very difficult answer, but what we do know is that capitalism has sometimes run off track, especially in the 1980s. Someone was saying a few months ago, capitalism doesn't work with an automatic pilot. There's no invisible hand. We know that it needs assistance now and then. There are things that we know. Very slowly they have become installed in the so-called capitalist countries. Very simple things with a great impact. For instance, the cult to individualism, the capitalist hero that we've seen oftentimes, or the idea that we think may be peregrine, but the classics taught us that a company is only there to create profit. And another thing that we all do is that we hope for the paternalistic state to help us solve all our problems. This has led to great imbalances. For instance, imbalances in the distribution of wealth, with a lot of poverty around the world, imbalances in education, a part of the population with elite training and education, and a lot of people without any kind of education whatsoever, and despair about the future. I didn't have that because I was taught to think in the future as something better than the present, but we know nowadays that a lot of the people in the world will not experience this. And these profound imbalances have been the source of a lot of political populism, all these ideologies of the far left or the far right xenophobic populism, and other politicians that are like rock stars. And now, during the French elections, we were all fearful that the balance could have tipped the other way. So capitalism needs some sort of moral orientation. Dr. Paulo Porter says the computer said that it did not have morals, but it could avoid the questions. So we need to have morals. We cannot forsake the questions. So capitalism needs a moral orientation, moral guidance. We all agree to that. But there are some who say or think without saying so that such morals must be served by the state. And here we disagree. I believe in morals built in community, in proximity with a name, my morals, the morals of Mary, of Michael, of morals that will impact in their lives, and their morals will impact in mine, and all built around the universal human rights. And something similar happens with the creation of wealth. Creating wealth is basic to any economic development process. And if you allow me, I'd like to highlight the word creation of wealth, because sometimes we confuse creation of wealth with the transaction of wealth. These are totally different things. Precisely because we speak of creating wealth, it may happen only if there is investment and training, education for people, and also comparative thinking. And all these things only happen if there is leadership. Once again, some say that the economic leadership must come from the state, a paternalist state, but we disagree with that once again. In my opinion, this economic leadership is the primary responsibility, of course, bearing in mind that the state does have an important role to prepare the conditions for economic development. The mayor of Lisbon gave us examples of that. But I was saying that economic leadership must be first and foremost in the businesses, in the business agents. It's our responsibility as business leaders, because businesses are communities of people who work close to one another, well, where you can build. In companies, we have something to call the business culture, and sometimes we forget that it's a great space to build morals. Companies are places where people work close to one another with a purpose and a meaning, and they are mobilized because this has an impact on their lives and other people's. It's also in businesses where a meritocracy may happen naturally. And another important thing, reciprocity between rights and duties. This happens naturally, and the creation of wealth happens here. That is why, in my opinion, business agents, all of us, are legitimated to work together with governments, with political power, with the state institutions. And also, it gives us the power to do so. I know some people don't like this because it's about politics, but I like to call it a responsibility. Our responsibility, everyone's responsibility, my responsibility. And I like to start with myself before approaching others. I studied the best I could. I've read some books. I read a book that led me to interview the author one day. It's Paul Collier, and he said what we're going to hear right now. Let's see if the technology works.
With capitalism, but it doesn't work on autopilot.
It doesn't work on autopilot. This was a very interesting conversation. It's just an excerpt that I've shown you. I invited this individual to be with us, and he's going to be here tomorrow in a discussion. We'll have also Dr. Paulo Portas to challenge Paul Collier's thoughts. So until then, thank you very much, and I hope you have an excellent conference.
Com essa expectativa.
With these expectations to also listen to a great thinker tomorrow during the conference.